Artists during the Harlem Renaissance. Aaron Douglas. Aaron Douglas was born in Topeka, Kansas in 1899. For his collegiate years, he attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where he pursued his love for art. After graduating, he moved to New York in 1925 and immediately immersed himself in the Harlem's culture. Once he got there, he pursued his love for art and created many famous pieces during the 1930s, which ultimately left a lasting impact on America. Some of Aaron Douglas's art includes The Aspects of Negro Life and Let My People Go. The Aspects of Negro Life from Slavery through Reconstruction is a group of murals that are painted. In this mural, he portrays African American history and contemporary life and the struggles they faced through the time periods of slavery all the way up to Reconstruction. Let My People Go depicts the Old Testament story of Moses saving the Israelites from Egypt. This is supposed to be symbolic to the oppression of African Americans during this time and a saving grace that came and gave them freedom. Jacob Lawrence. Jacob Lawrence was born in New Jersey in 1917. He, however, was raised in Harlem by his mother. At the age of 16, he dropped out of school, but continued to take art classes with his mentor at the school. Jacob Lawrence is famous for painting many different series, such as the Migration series and the War series. Some of Jacob Lawrence's art includes the Harriet Tubman series, which was created in 1940. Through this series, he wanted to describe and illustrate the struggles that African Americans faced during the time of slavery. He used the historical figures to tell the stories of their struggles in gaining liberation. In this set of 31 panels, which this painting is number 4, he shows the life of Harriet Tubman and her work with helping over 300 slaves to freedom during slavery. And The Migrants Kept Coming is another painting by Jacob Lawrence, which was painted in 1941. This is part of the Migration series, which was one of Jacob Lawrence's most famous series of art. This set of 60 paintings were all done on cardboard and made him famous for painting during the Harlem Renaissance. This series helps show the struggles of African Americans throughout the time and depicted the Great Migration that many African Americans faced while fleeing the South and going to look for jobs and escape racial discrimination in the North. As shown in the painting, many of them used railroads to get from the South to the North. Augusta Savage. Augusta Savage was born in Florida in 1892 and started sculpting at a young age using only natural clay. She moved to New York and attended Cooper Union, where she eventually got the chance to study abroad and sculpt abroad in Paris. During the Great Depression, she helped many artists find work that were out of work because of the lack of jobs and unemployment rates. She made a name for herself as a portrait sculptor and was very famous for creating busts of people such as Du Bois and Garvey. Some of Augusta Savage's art includes Gaiman, which was created in 1929. She was inspired by a homeless boy on the streets because he looked wiser than her age. This sculpture helps to show the hardships that everyone faced and the wiseness of children during this time because of the hardships that they continued to face at such a young age. This sculpture ended up winning her a scholarship to study in Paris, which she continued to study and sculpt abroad. Lift Every Voice and Sing was created because of a commission Augusta Savage received from the 1939 New York World's Fair and constructed this piece as a result. This piece was inspired by a song written by James Weldon and was the most popular and photographed thing at the fair. Many replicas were sold, however, at a very smaller size. This sculpture was originally 16 feet tall, however, after the fair was over, it was destroyed because of the lack of money to keep it. This harp features 12 singing African American children and tries to describe the culture of African Americans during this time period. Louis Malu Jones. She was born in Boston in 1905 and studied at many schools of art. Her parents were a big part in helping her become the painter she is today because of their efforts in sending her to art schools. She painted many African traditions in the form of masks and rituals and dances and a lot of the traditional things that African American culture had. She studied abroad in Paris, where she continued to paint. Some of Louis Mallory Jones's art includes Life Fitches, which was designed in 1939 and displays 5 different African American trial masks. Jones made the painting have a feeling of a mysterious spiritual dimension that is brought on by special ritual dance as displayed in the painting. She chose to paint about African American backgrounds and their different traditional backgrounds, instead of describing the hardships and struggles that they faced during the Reconstruction era. The Ascent of Ethiopia, which was painted in 1932, displays the struggles that African Americans faced when starting a new life in America. They faced racial discrimination and hardships along every turn, and that was Jones's goal when showing how these people had their goals of creating a lasting impact of African art on America. Archibald Motley. He was born in New Orleans in 1891 and studied painting at the School of Art in Chicago. Motley believed art would end racial prejudices and was influenced greatly by W.E.B. Du Bois and Alain Locke. He painted about Black social life in the Jazz Age, however, he also primarily painted portraits. Some of the art created by Archibald Motley includes the Jazz Age Modernist, which he painted images of what the evenings looked like for people who partied. He painted the modern Jazz Age and the labor and leisure that came with it. He is given this name for the ideas he painted during the Harlem Renaissance and the idea of the evening and the fun, exciting parts of the 1920s. Saturday Night was painted and chronicles the life of African Americans and all others at night and the extravagant parties that went on. In Saturday Night, he describes the exciting life that people had at night. However, unlike other artists, in his work, he describes the positive aspects of life during the 1920s and 30s rather than describing the struggles that African Americans faced during this time period. Here is my work cited for the entire project.